Welcome back to PageKey, where we take back tech. This is the HexBox devlog, and we actually launched this baby, put it in someone's house, used it a couple weeks ago, but trouble in paradise. The orchestrator on here that's supposed to unlock transparent computing and show you exactly what's going on had lots of problems. So we are rewriting it. We're going from an object-based approach to a graph-based approach. So I actually haven't even posted last week's video yet, but before I do, I want to set the tone for this upcoming week. Thanks, David, by the way, great editing. We ran the hard-coded graph. Next up, we're going to run that graph from a YAML file. Then we'll run functions for each node of the graph so that it actually does something, and then we will store outputs, and then ... we'll figure it out. So notice how, like we said, type feedback loop, small scope, real system. Each of these is a feedback loop in itself. So this is a running product. It's just a hard-coded graph, so there's only one option. And then this really opens the doors. You can run just about anything with any YAML file that you write. So you bring your own config file and run whatever you want, but it doesn't actually do anything. It just prints out the node order. But then we add functions that run at the time of the nodes. You can embed code, all that good stuff. That actually is useful, and we could probably run the MVP of the backup stuff with that. However, storing outputs and passing them between nodes, that's the next step there, and we'll go from there. So that's our starter. Let's get into it. I'll do my best to record throughout the week as I go through these steps. In the meantime, go to tryhexbox.com, get on the wait list so that you can get one of these guys. You'll be among the first. Give me your email. I'll shoot you a weekly email, and you will be in the know. So thanks for following along. Okay, we're back. As a reminder, here's where we're at. If we run hex run, some kind of graph identifier, we have it traversing this graph. Of course, it completely ignores this identifier, and it's just running this hard-coded graph. So rather than recording every tiny little code that I write, I think I'm just going to record whenever the feedback loop is executed. And that feedback loop is quite small right now. I'm just running this one command. So I'm going to try to update this command, see if we can pull this from a YAML file instead of hard coding it. Okay, we're no longer hard coded. If we run this, and you can see main.yamls right here, what if we edit this? I'm going to add a new stage, and we're going to call it new stage that also relies on review. We run it, and we see that new stage there. Proof that it's coming from the YAML, which is pretty cool. We have just load graph from YAML, no big deal. And then we have in run DAG, we are enforcing this workspace path thing again. I think that's a good layout. So if you have a workspace, then you have a modules folder, you have a name for each module, and then each module has graphs. We'll leave room for other types of resources in there eventually, and we're good to go. So I'm going to keep going. Quick one, just added a way to print the results of running the DAG, which is of course just a dictionary with not too much going on in it. So we execute everything, and then here are the results. It's just a bunch of strings saying result of this node or that node. Okay, stepping towards the provider execution stuff. We have a hard-coded provider now. Seems good to start hard-coded and work your way from there. Just prints a message and returns another message. And then down here, when we're executing the node, instead of just randomly setting some stuff, we're going to execute that provider and set it in the results dictionary. And that's where you see this down here. You see some extra messages being printed, and you see that output here. So let's keep expanding on this. How can we make this better? I'll tell you how we can make it better. The highest ROI for us is certainly to add a providers folder here and then load this code dynamically. And then we can handle hooking up the inputs and outputs later. Let's start with that. Okay, we have another good loop here. If we execute, we see hello from the echo provider, and we see some results being set. And what if we say something hi, and we say hello from the echo provider, that type of thing. If we run it again, we see that our change took effect, which means that we're loading from echo.py in the providers folder in our core module. So that's a big step forward. How did we do that? Well, this little load function from path thing takes care of importing that run function that we're assuming is there. And then this load provider basically just gets the file path to that .py file and then loads the function out of that .py file. Down here, we say provider equals load provider, node.provider. By the way, we added a provider to the node. It's just a string. Oh, I forgot to show the graph. Right here, you have the provider, and it's using that same format of module dot something. Then we call the provider function, and then we store the result, and that's it. So simple improvement. Let's start thinking about what's next, which is probably setting inputs, setting outputs, and getting a little bit cleaner. If we could pass some data from one node to another, that would be really big. Okay, embarrassing admission. I woke up thinking about unit testing today. While we're still under 100 lines, let's do a little unit testing, and then clearly the next step is to probably store the results in a namespaced way so that the name of the node dot whatever output it wants to return is in the results dictionary, and then we can go from there. Okay, we have yet another running loop here, and we made a few small changes. First of all, I did a little reading about protocol, pretty useful stuff. Instead of an abstract base class, you can use this guy. Anyway, we defined that our provider function accepts an input stick and an outputs dictionary like this, so that we know in our provider here, we're kind of encoding this a little bit more formally. And then what did we do? We tweaked this to use that method signature. We have two protocols here. We have ProviderLoader and GraphLoader. This is using dependency injection or inversion to control, whatever you want to call it. We're passing these in. We can actually delete this workspace path. We'll do that in a second. But anyway, we're passing in the loaders, and then we're just using those loaders with the graph ID and with the provider, all that stuff. So this is going to allow us to test without actually touching the file system. We can just mock these out and use an in-memory version of them. But these local ones, they operate on local files on the file system. This is where we basically just copy pasted the logic from before, where we're loading the YAML from the disk. But this can be independently tested, and when we're testing the DAG, we don't have to intersperse all that logic. Same thing here. We're just kind of calling the same methods that we were before. So could probably take those methods up here and put them into these classes, since it's the only place that they'll be used. These could probably end up in their own files eventually anyway, but here's the running loop. So proof that it still runs. We're going to keep tweaking. Hopefully we can get some good test coverage for this file, and then we'll expand from there. Okay, we're running again, but we have different files. We have DAG, we have local GraphLoader has its own file, local provider, and models. They all have their own files now. It's a lot cleaner. Let's add some tests. Okay, so our main loop still runs, and crucially, our tests run, and by that I mean our only test that we have. Added execution and graph results. In order to test this, I kind of had to add some additional stuff here. So we tweaked this so that every time you run a node, you get an execution that eventually gets returned, and then the graph results at the end is not just the outputs dictionary, but the outputs dictionary and the executions. And then you can see we have a 3-part test name with one node, returns valid results. We coordinate a bunch of stuff. We have fake loaders and providers. This is where that protocol thing that I didn't know about until now comes in really handy. Also, using the __ call helps a lot to keep this short and to the point. But when you get our results, we call it with some random ID with the mock stuff. And then we just assert that when we do that, we should get an output with the called provider stored under that node's name, executions with that node noted, and empty input and output ticks. So now it's quite clear that we can modify this to be namespaced by the node. We can modify this to actually contain the proper inputs and outputs. We'll probably need an additional test to pass inputs and outputs into the DAG, but this adds so much flexibility for how we can test this out, and we can nail down certain cases, because I think the complexity is going to explode a little bit once we get into the inputs and outputs. We added a few things, and let's just say the unit testing is very helpful. The integration testing is helpful. Can really change things without worrying about breaking things. But now your outputs of your nodes are scoped. If the node outputs apple3, then it gets put into my node.apple3. Also, the executions are a dictionary now, so that's used to track, whether something ran rather than checking the outputs. So those kind of separated. And then we have graph inputs. That's really the next step, is to get graph inputs fed in so that nodes can access it. And also, I think this is going to be our graph YAML format, where we have a list of inputs to that graph, and we have a list of outputs and which nodes are providing those outputs. We'll keep stepping towards that, but here's what it looks like if we run it. Now we have scoped outputs of each node that we're printing out, which is great. Okay, we're nearing the end of the week, but we've got a lot of good stuff done. We started the week with a hard-coded graph. We ran it from a YAML file instead, which really opened up the possibilities. Now we have it running provider functions. We had all that. But now we have inputs and outputs of each node, and then we have the overall graph has inputs and outputs as well. We're able to use test-driven development here to speed things up and make it cool. Subgraph, that's the final frontier here. We have node outputs, we have graph inputs, outputs, we have passing things between nodes. So if we can get this done, I think we're ready to move on to the next phase and get this all integrated onto the real stuff. Not sure if we'll get to that this week though. Check this out. I was able to add a subgraph call without really overhauling too much about this. So I think it's kind of indicative of a good paradigm we got going here. If I run this core.call, it calls that main subgraph. So this graph is called by this graph. And how that works is it's basically just importing stuff from Hex, which we can clean up these imports, of course. And then it calls the run DAG, the same one that ran this thing. So that's kind of cool. It's just passing stuff back into itself. And this is where we can recurse infinitely. And I think that's very exciting. Notice this lives in the providers. So like this will probably be in some kind of core package that's provided that everyone uses. And yeah, so how much more transparent can you get than the engine starting to implement like basic functionality using itself? So I'm pretty excited about this. One thing that I had to do to get this to work was it checks now if things are a node in the graph. It does that with this little helper function. And if things are not a node, it interprets it as a literal. So there is no core node in this graph. Obviously, there's just one node. So then it interprets this as a literal string to pass in. Same thing basically with all these. So that really expands the number of things that we can do. So that checks the last box for me this week as well. So probably going to wrap this video up and say, hey, we made a lot of progress this week on the software. And maybe next week we can actually get this onto the hardware instead of the old dusty engine. So thanks for watching. Go to tryhexbox.com if you would like to sign up for the waitlist. We'll get you a HexBox, maybe open source this soon for everyone to see. And it's going to be a great world. We're going to have all sorts of good education and we're all going to work together. And subscribe and join me for the journey. I'll see you next time. Thanks.